Hello, everyone. Today, a bit delayed due to technological problems, but back on the podcast Art My Medicine. My name is Dorota, and I am a Reborn Artist. And I'm hosting today an amazing guest, Ryan, with whom I collaborated on many occasions, and we have a spooky history together. How we inject and pass the creativity to each other. So Ryan, I will allow you to introduce yourself, and we will get it from there.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thanks for having me. And to those that don't know me, I'm Ryan of R5K.poetry. And I've been writing poetry for a good few years now. Um, it initially started as a way for me to um, get my thoughts and feelings kind of out of my head to help me understand myself a bit better. And from there, it just kind of grew to something that I enjoyed doing so much that I thought, I'm just going to write about anything and everything. And from there, the journey started. And as you say, connected with like-minded people such as yourself. And I've been fortunate enough to do some amazing work with other people around the world. Um, that also includes publishing two of my own books that have gone around the world as well. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Great. You mentioned that you are doing that. You are using words for a few good years now. Do you mind telling us a story? How did it come about? How did you become a poet?
Yeah, so it all started. It all started a number of years ago, where I was in a really bad place, and I was referred to go and see a therapist. And as part of the recovery program she kind of put together was um, for me to start writing and kind of journaling when I was having bad days and what was triggering those thoughts and emotions, and then trying to kind of reflect on that then together to see what the cause of the problem was, or to see what I could maybe do differently, or how I could approach a situation differently. Um, and I actually started finding that it was almost like as I was reading back through it, I was telling myself little stories about, well, this is what's happened and this is why I feel this way. And it kind of just became a bit of a thing of, this is quite dark and quite sad when reading this back. So I want it to be something that when I'm reading back through it, trying to understand myself, that I can have a little bit of enjoyment from it. And the conversation with the therapist got to, okay, if I'm going to continue to write this down, how can I make it so that I actually want to revisit it? And it just kind of grew from there. That it was just a way of me writing things down that I could then go back and look at and not think, oh my God, I can't read this. And it literally just, it was born out of that, of I was journaling my thoughts and my feelings, and it just became a way that I could write it down, or type it into the notes app on my phone, and then go back to it and think, okay, because it's in a structure, or because it's something that's kind of fun to read, I can go back and look at it, and I can take myself out of the situation to look at it quite analytically, without kind of falling back into that same place that I was in at the time that I wrote it.
Wow, amazing. So, you are also a reborn artist in that matter, isn't it? And similarly to my story, it became a kind of medicine to you.
Mm, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it is quite funny to think that when I was at school, I absolutely hated writing. I'd write essays as short as I physically could. If I was given a 2,500 word limit, guaranteed I'd only just make that word limit. Um, Poetry and kind of analysing poetry was something I always absolutely detested during English lessons, which I think most people kind of find, because the way that it's taught in school is that you have to pick everything apart and there has to be a deeper meaning to everything. Um,
Yeah.
and for me to then get into writing it, it was, well, actually, no, I want to keep it so that it is what it says it is. There's no hidden meanings behind anything. It's just whatever you see on the page, the words that you see, is what is meant by it. And that is why it's such a good way for me to express myself and understand myself, because I know that when I write something down, that there is only one meaning to what's written, because it is exactly what the words say they are. And it does just mean that I can get everything out of my head, or if I'm feeling heavy in my heart, I can write it down, and it leaves my body, and then I can just go back to it when I need to say, well, this is how I felt at this moment in time, but I don't feel like that anymore.
It's amazing, you know, and it resonates with me so much, because I used to refer to my art as trapping demons on the paper. And as soon as I put them on that paper, I somehow evict them from my mind. And although they don't disappear fully ever, by giving them that voice to appear on that paper, it somehow gives me a bit of release, and they are not so worrying. So this is something similar, although I use images. I use poetry as well, but images in particular make it for me very strong kind of healing. I get strong healing from them. And the aspect of, I don't know if you do that. Do you sometimes write something and then, you know, just scrap it into, shred it into pieces?
I don't think I've ever just gotten rid of anything. There's definitely a lot of stuff that I've written that no one will ever be able to read. I've got a couple of different notebooks, and there is one that is stuff that will never be seen by other people. But it is exactly like you say. The notebook is the prison cell that I put all of those demons into. And once they're in there and that book's closed, that's it. The gate's locked. They're not coming back out again.
Yeah.
And it is that, it's almost like that safety net of, if there's something going on that I don't understand or I don't want to be feeling, I can write it down. It's gone. I don't need to sit and think about it anymore.
It's amazing, and it's I found that many therapists, many counselors, you know, suggest, mostly for those people who have very intrusive thoughts and anxiety aspects, to have a kind of a dump journal, meaning that this is a kind of book in which you just write down whatever intrusive thoughts, however ridiculous they might be, you know, whatever words you want to use, you want to swear, you swear, but you allow yourself to do it just for 10 minutes maximum, and then close the book and tell your brain, you know, you gave it a voice, they need to stay in the book now, you know, they got the voice and they need to, you know, leave your brain. So one of those books that you mentioned, those notebooks, might be this kind of dump journal, isn't it? Yeah, that's amazing. I heard also that you have a nickname, right?
If this is
Something
where I
with
think it's
royalty.
got, yeah. So as I say, initially poetry was a way for me to express myself, and I've never been particularly good at vocalising thoughts or feelings, which translates as well into my relationship. So it became a way for me to kind of say, right, this is how I feel about you, and from there, both of my books were kind of born from that way of, I'm trying to express the way that I feel about you, because I don't know how to say it out loud. And that is, if anyone looks at my Instagram page, you'll probably see that is most of what I actually post, because that's mostly what I write now. And from there, the King of Romance was somehow born, which was kind of, I was crowned, as it were, by a couple of other poets also on Instagram. And I need to say a massive thank you to those people as well for supporting me as much as they have. Particularly when it came to my second book, the pre-release of my second book, they actually pre-read it and made sure that everything was exactly how it should have been, and that it told the story that it needed to tell. And yeah, it kind of, it is really strange to think that something that just started as a way for me to say, right, I'm going to lift my spirits, as it were, for me to then get to this point where people are looking at what I'm saying, this is pretty good, and we're going to give you a name for that. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, it's amazing. And yeah, I read many of your poems, and I can see why that nickname kind of stuck to you, because you talk about emotions a lot, about love, about betrayal, about loneliness. And do you find that it is somehow commented on that a male, a very masculine male, because you walk out a lot, don't you? Talks about emotions in such an open way.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a thing that doesn't happen as much as it needs to, and I think that's why I initially got to that place of having to start writing was because as as a man you're supposed to keep everything to yourself, and you're supposed to go out to work and get dirty and come home and have a shower and everything's fine. But life isn't as straightforward as I'm a man, I'm going to go and do the work, and then I'm not going to have any other thoughts or feelings. Um, and for me, it's trying to open that conversation and say it is okay to not be okay, and it's okay to think things or to feel things that society says you shouldn't, because that's just part of being a human being, regardless of where you're from or who you are or what you look like or how you dress or what you believe in. You're allowed to think and believe or feel certain things. And if you're like myself and you can't physically say them for whatever reason, or it takes you time to formulate the words to go with that feeling, write it down. No one else has to see it. Write it
Exactly.
down.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. Writing is the form of expression as verbal language is. And um, perhaps this is a good advice for men who may be scared to open up
Mm.
about their mental health, just to write it down, because, like you said, nobody needs to see it. You can keep it under, the lock, and allow it only to be accessed by you. So it's a great form, isn't it? Um, Also, when you write things down, I don't know if you have that a kind of aspect, but the kinesthetic action of writing things down validates your thoughts, isn't it? Is that they become more kind of real and formed. While when you let your thoughts just ramble around, they are usually a kind of meshy substance that you can't really grasp. So it's sometimes about name those emotions. When you write
Mm.
them, it comes to you what you really feel, because you think you know what you sorry, what you feel. But when you write it down, it becomes more clear and more vivid to understand and assess, isn't it?
Yeah, I think in terms of the physical action of writing, I'm a bit of a weird case for that. So I'm a bit of a hybrid where I tend to use the notes app on my phone a lot, just because it's on me. So if I'm out and about or I'm at work, I don't always have my notebook or a paper I can write on.
Mm.
So I will jot things down. But then if it is something that I feel needs to be written, then I will then write it out by hand as well as having it in my notes app on the phone, for that exact reason of I'm physically um, I'm physically releasing something that needs to be released, and the act of texting or typing isn't the same as physically writing something out. Much in the same way that I can go to the gym and I can train, and I can lift weights or I can hit the punch bag. It's that act of physically releasing that stress or that emotion. It is exactly the same when you're writing, because you are using the nervous system and the muscles to physically write something down, that you've just got that physical release. And then seeing it physically on paper is very much, um, it is real, whereas typing it on your phone or something, it's digital, it doesn't physically
Yeah.
exist. So yeah, actually writing stuff down does make a massive difference.
Yeah, perhaps that is why I'm overloaded with books. Although I have a Kindle, but I somehow just love the physical book,
Yeah.
the touch of it, the smell of it. Um, yeah, there is something about material aspect of certain things that we perceive it as more real. I also think that, because mental health, or in particular ill mental health, might be so abstract to even understand by yourself, this what is happening, going on in your head might be very confusing, right? So yeah, so writing it down or taking doing some artistic outcome with whatever emotions you have, it's the way to get it out or let it out. You mentioned that you published two books. Would you like to tell us what they are?
Yes, so um, the first one that I published, 2020 Vision, is a collection of 20 love poems, and that is it was my initial way of saying thank you and I love you to everyone that I need to tell. Uh, that includes my other half, who has supported me for everything that I've done over the last nearly 11 years now, actually.
Wow.
Um, and she puts up with a lot of shit from me. I'm not gonna lie. With everything that I've been through over the last however many years it's been since I started this journey. So it was a thank you to her for everything that she's done for me. But it was also an I love you and a thank you to my grandparents, who are sadly no longer with us. Um, but one of my nans was an English teacher, so she spent countless hours of my childhood trying to get me to read and write more. So it's almost like I've kind of inherited something from her, um, and I felt like I had to validate the fact that I can do it in honour of her, and to thank her for giving me the power of having language and being able to express things I didn't think I could express. She physically gave me the voice that I'm able to use now to say, this is what I feel, or this is what I think, or this is what needs to be said about something. Um, and for my grandparents as a whole, for all of them, it's the thank you for bringing me up to be who I am, giving me the values, and for my granddad in particular, for having that kind of that character of constantly trying to push forward and make things and get things done, and no matter what happens, always working to achieve the next thing. So that was the first book, 2020 Vision, as I say, which was then followed up by Heart in the Clouds, which again is just an extended collection of all things love, particularly for a modern day relationship. I think love poetry in general, when you say, oh, it's a love poem, people think about a classical work of literature and something that's really long and convoluted. And although it says what it needs to say, because people in schools tend to look at that kind of thing and say, right, we need to pick everything apart and find its hidden meaning. I wanted to write a collection of poems that is, as I say, at face value, this is what it is. There's nothing else to say about it. It's just a poem to tell you how I feel, or what's going on. And I hope it fits the bill, given the tagline that it's got. But it's a collection of poems for the modern day relationship.
Amazing, amazing. And yeah, it's love is in particular kind of a tricky subject, isn't it? Um, because very often, there is this longing associated with love. Very often we don't have the love in a shape that we want. Um, for different circumstances, sometimes it's a distance, sometimes it's ill mental health that comes in a way. So yeah, it's a subject that might be thrown upon, mostly when it is about celebrating love, because
Mm.
I found that humans are quite okay with all the art associated with broken heart. But when it comes to acknowledge and celebrate the happy love, the nurturing love, it is somehow looked in different way. Do you have that kind of reactions to your poems?
Um, I can't. I can't say that I generally get many people that say, "Oh, this is groundbreaking," because it's not. It's um, it's certainly nothing new, but I think it's been said in a way that maybe people would normally kind of go, "Oh, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can bring myself to say it because it's so. It makes you raw, and it leaves you.
Vulnerable, isn't it?
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
vulnerable admitting that, yeah.
It leaves you completely exposed when you say, "This is my heart. Have it."
Yeah.
And I think, like you say, a lot of people will kind of shy away from that kind of in your face, "This is how much I love you" kind of thing to say, and kind of um, veering towards, "Oh, I think I feel this way, but I want to try and put it in a way that if it's not accepted, that I can say I actually meant something else."
Yeah.
Um, just because of how vulnerable it leaves you once you kind of put it out there or sent it to someone. I think it is just that thing of people don't want to be exposed
Of course.
to being a person.
Yeah, and it links somehow with admitting the love and the feelings, the emotions makes you vulnerable. And in the same way, when you get open about your ill mental health, you really, it's like with the love, you
Mm,
get kind of, you open up, you allow access to the part of you that it's very easy to get harmed and abused, really. So I think that those two really go along. But I fixated on something you said about your grandparents, and that they somehow kindled your talents and your love for words. And then I started to think about our story. We just started to follow each other on Instagram, didn't we? And I remember that I offered, like, if you need any art at any
mm,
point, just give me a shout. And you asked me if I could create an image for your poem. And I did. And this is how our journey started, that we now somehow infect each other with creativity. So sometimes I create an image and then you are inspired to write the poem. And in opposite way, sometimes you write the poem and I feel inspired to create an image. Do you believe then that creativity is contagious?
absolutely. Um, yeah, I think just just to go back to kind of how we connected, it was literally just a chance thing of one day I popped an Instagram story on and said, "Look, I want to follow more creative people. Send me the usernames of some artists or writers or musicians or whatever kind of art form they're in that you think I should check out." And your name pops up, and I clicked on the page and thought, "This is the sort of." I think if I think it's fair for me to say that some of your artwork is a little bit more abstract than others. And I think that's kind of what hit me straight away was this isn't the usual thing that you tend to see being posted online. And I want to see more, and I want to see what it's about and kind of understand what goes on with that creative process. So yeah, that for me was the thing of this is someone that I can look at and say I can connect with that because there's something going on here that you're not necessarily seeing in the process that is creating something that is visually stunning. Um, and then, like you said, from there, it kind of became a thing of you'd post a picture or you'd post something you painted, and I'd go, right, I can pull something from this, whether it's what was initially intended or not. I can pick up on something that's in this picture, I can extract that, and I can expand on it with words. And I think that definitely applies across all art forms as well. I think probably music is the big one that everyone will be able to pick up on because music's everywhere. Um, you can listen to a song and straight away it can take you to a place or it can make you feel a certain way. And for me in particular, there are songs that I've listened to and gone, I need to write something that replies to this or that echoes what the sentiment of this is, but in my own way, so that I can then further enjoy the original piece. Also, that I can try and make it more accessible to people that maybe wouldn't otherwise pick up on the thing that it's representing. And I think at the end of the day, all creativity is a very human aspect of life. Yeah. To say, I've got something inside of me, I need to get out, I need to put it into a physical form or some way that I can share with other people, because all artwork it's a social venture in that you're trying to express something and trying to share something with other people. And if you go back however many thousands of years you want to go back, it's a thing of coming together as a community and sharing stories and sharing experience and teaching people lessons through forms other than just saying, this is a thing, this is how you do it, this is the end result. And it is that thing of communicating with people about who we are and how we feel and what's going on in the world. And it just opens us up to say, like, I am one person, but together we can be so much more if we just look at something and say, this is what we want to create.
Yeah, it's about something that is like collective, isn't it? And it's a kind of ripple effect that artistic souls inspire each other. I created many art forms, art pieces to the music that I listened to. And somehow that piece of music then becomes a kind of, part of me that I cherish even more, although I may have loved it before, but after creating something with it, it's like I create a bond. Yeah. And I think that, this is how it works. It's a ripple effect. One creative soul gets inspired, by another, and then we create more beautiful world. However, people still perceive art as being a kind of luxury thing, right? Because, well, let's not beat about the bush. Living from art is extremely difficult. So yeah, we just, when we say that you're an artist, you have those kind of weird looks, and they don't take you seriously, do they? So there is funny kind of dissociation that I find in society. People can't live without art. They don't even notice and name it as art, but they use it and abuse it, on daily basis. You wouldn't, be able to live without music, without some decorative, stuff on your walls and film and whatsoever. But when it comes to being an artist, people say like, what? It's like, why are we like that? What do you think? Why we treat art and artists as a second kind of category, although we can't live without it?
I think when you say to someone that you're an artist, people will look at you in one of two ways: of either you're really highbrow and you do, like I say, it's a luxury thing. It's you're in museums and galleries around the world and you're traveling those and you're being paid thousands of pounds to create a single piece. And it's something that I could never understand or I could never aspire to be. Or they will take it the other way and say, oh, well, you're evidently just a hobbyist. You just create things in your spare time because you've got nothing else to do. And I think a lot of it does come back to the way that we talked about art and writing. As I say, when I think back to when I was at school, art lessons for me, I was never particularly good at drawing or painting or anything. So it never really gripped me in a way that I could say, this is something that I want to continue with, or this is something that I understand. I can walk around. I went to the Louvre, me and my other half went to the Louvre a few years back. And I was walking around thinking, this looks nice, but because I don't understand the creative process behind it, I can't appreciate it or at least at the time, I couldn't appreciate it for exactly what it was, which is someone has dedicated so much of their life to create this one thing that is expressing something. And unless you kind of understand what they're trying to express, it's very difficult to appreciate it for what it is. And the same goes for poetry and for music, because it's something that you have to have a level of skill or attention to detail to create it. A lot of people will just kind of shy away from it and go, oh, I couldn't do that, so I'm not going to bother trying to engage with it fully. And as I said, the way that these things are taught in schools is that you have to be really highbrow and you have to pick everything apart and know every single little detail about who the person was to appreciate what they're saying. I mean, I specifically remember doing Wilfred Owen poems when I was at school, and we had to spend weeks on end picking apart single poems to say, oh, these are all hidden meanings. And you look at what's on the page and it's, well, no, actually, he's just saying this is what is happening during the war on this given day that I've written the poem. It's not complicated to understand. He's just trying to tell people what is actually going on. But the education system makes it feel as though there's a hidden meaning to every other line that's written in the poem, or because of the structure that is used, it means this instead of this. And that's not the case. I will write stuff down, and it's just, I don't write it with a set structure in mind. I just write it to say, this is what I want to say, and this is how it either looks nice on the page, or this is how it feels nice to speak it when I then read it back. Or it's just, these are the words that I thought of at the time that I was writing it, and it just kind of happened that way. So I think it is in part because of the way that people are taught it at a young age, but then also because people don't want to have to invest the time to understand it a lot of the time, or because they're kind of, they feel like they want to create something, but they don't know how to go about doing it. So they're just going to go, oh, well, I'll ignore that and I'll try and find something else to do instead.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point you made, because it really resonates with me that our educational system somehow profanates the art by doing that analytical work on it. Because, you know, let's face it, if the artist wanted to give a backscene story to why he has written that or why he has painted that, it would be found somewhere in his belongings, right? So why would you analyze the poem like that, to rip it to pieces, to make it look like just words, when there is a process there, a thought, a picture involved in those words? So I think we teach art in a kind of medical way, scalpel, dissection, and laboratory to analyze, which is not the way. I think you mentioned, in between your lines, I could find that we should teach creativity rather than art. We should show children and young people how to play with words, how to play with paints, and create nothing more than just the outcome of how nice it was to just, splash that paint on the paper. And this would perhaps change the perspective to perceiving arts. And also the aspect like galleries and museums. As a child, I remember going to museums, and although I always appreciate art, I couldn't understand why there are only the labels, name of the artist, media used, the date, and very, very little into why he painted that landscape. Because this changes the perception of art. If you know a bit of the story behind, then you feel it. You try to put yourself in the shoes of that artist, and then you will perceive that landscape completely different way, I guarantee.
Yeah, I think just going back to when we went to the Louvre, from exactly that, we walked into the room where the Mona Lisa is, and obviously everyone is surrounded, literally like 20 people deep, this crowd, trying to get close to see the Mona Lisa. And I've never understood it. I've never looked at it and thought, oh, that's a really good painting, because I don't appreciate the skill that it takes to create something like that. But we turned 180 degrees, and on the wall where the door is to enter the room, there is a massive painting. It's absolutely huge, and it's so detailed and it's so beautiful. And I thought, why is everyone looking at the thing behind me and not this? Because this is so much grander. And I think if people were allowed to have access to that background for something that is so visual, you need to have a little bit of an identity of what it is to be able to say, oh, that's why it's significant, or to be able to say, I can now understand. Like, if you said this is how long it took to create it, then I would be able to look at it just from a creator's point of view and say, it truly is something that's taken a long time to perfect and to get right. So now I can appreciate it just for that, rather than the hidden meanings or whatever else. And you can look at it just from the point of view of someone has spent X hours to create something because X, Y, Z. And you can look at it without having to have any other knowledge of how they've done it, or any kind of previous experience of doing that yourself. And you can say, okay, I can appreciate that now because I know the story behind it a little bit.
Yeah, indeed. And it's so important. That is why I annoy galleries that display my work, because I request to display also long captions why that art piece was created. You mentioned that you struggled with ill mental health. Like, what is ill mental health to you? How you fight the battle each time, except we know that you write to have the release from it, but what else do you do to make sure that you keep stable?
I think I'm not going to try and answer what mental health is, because it is such a big can of worms to open, and because everyone will have their own perception of it. But in terms of what I do to make sure that I don't fall back down the rabbit hole, is just making sure that everything I do is done for the right purpose. So I won't force myself to do something or take part in something that I know is going to put me in a position where I'm just not gonna get the right the right vibes from it, or it's going to overstress me. Obviously, there's always going to be something you have to do that you don't want to do, but it's framing it in a way that you can say, well, this is why I'm doing it. So if I've got a particular task to do at work, I'm not going to overstress about it because I know that it needs to be done, but it's just approaching it and framing it in the way to understand why you're doing it. Making sure that you've got the right support systems around you. As I say, I'm fortunate enough to have my other half who's always brilliant and always got my back, and family and friends that will always kind of give you a hand if you need a hand, or say the right things when you need to hear something you picked up, and having some form of outlet. As you say, for me, that's generally writing, but also going to the gym, keeping active. But even little things like watching things that make you happy, or playing video games and escaping into a different world for half an hour or an hour. There are so many things that you can do. I went on a mental health first aid course a few years back, and one of the big things I took from that course was just knowing what the signs are that something isn't right, and then knowing who you can turn to or what you can do to kind of turn things around, or knowing whose hand you can reach for when you feel like you're falling. So it essentially all comes back down to have something that you can go and do that you enjoy, or that is a release for you, but also having people around you that you know will be there for you when you need them.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the most difficult parts of, knowing those moments, because they may be very subtle, the triggers, or something happening, but having people around you who could say that, they see that something is getting wrong, because sometimes
Yeah,
we ourselves notice a bit too late that we gone down that rabbit hole, isn't it? So exactly that, support network is extremely important, isn't it? um do did you use any services of this, this kind of support that exist, that you can, go to a certain group or call certain helpline? Do you have an experience with that?
I um the first time round that I needed the help, I was very reluctant to, just because I never saw that there was an issue, and that's where my support network came into its own. Was that I had people there that said, "You need to do something. There's something not right. You have to do something." Um, and that was a case of going to my GP and being referred. Um, Initially, I was referred for therapy, and I didn't want to go because, again, I didn't think there was a problem. Um, and because I didn't think there was a problem, there was no way that I could tell someone else what the problem was, because I don't know that it exists. I can't explain it to
Yeah.
you. Um, so I was given a course of medication, which for me personally didn't work. I actually started to feel like I was doing worse on it.
Mhm.
Um, Partly because I've got quite an addictive personality. If I find something that I enjoy, then that's it. I'm all in. And I was reluctant, just for that reason, to say this is working, because I didn't want to rely on that only and not have anything else to do.
Mm.
Um, and at the time, I was working in a place where I wasn't enjoying myself. Every day was becoming more of a struggle to get up and go into work. So the big thing for me was getting out of that environment, moving somewhere new, giving myself a fresh start. And from there, I was able to kind of build myself back up, until the underlying causes kind of hit me again. And I think I probably fell deeper than I had the first time. But because I'd had a previous experience, again, the people around me kind of grabbed hold of me and said, "You need to, you're falling back again. You need to pick yourself back up." And so from there, it was a case of I'm not going down the medication route again, because it didn't work for me. Um, so I spoke to my GP. I got a number for one of the local mental health teams. And I spoke to them a few times on the phone, and that kind of gave me short-term fixes as to what I could do until I could physically get me in to see someone. And then, like I say, I then started going to see a therapist once a week for, I think it was 3 or 4 months,
Yeah.
for literally for weekly check-ins. And then it'd be a case that she'd kind of give me um, something that I could do over the week, or a suggestion as to another coping strategy that I could try and implement.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of that was just learning to understand myself. Now that I look back at it, it wasn't that she was just giving me stuff to do to keep me occupied. It was everything was there to help me reflect on myself and to understand who I am as a person. Um, and that's why writing became such a big thing for me, was that I was able to say, this is who I am on this day, or at this very minute, and this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I know that I can do to make sure that I get back to where I should be if I'm not there already. Um,
Yeah.
Also, that when I'm in a really good place, that I can look back at it when I'm not feeling too good and say, well, actually, if I was able to achieve this on this day, what was I doing at the time that allowed me to escalate and elevate myself to that?
Yeah.
Um, and just it all just comes down to know who you are, and know what you need to do to be
Yeah.
the best version of yourself.
That's very important indeed. Having that purpose, knowing, accepting what who you are and what gives you those pleasures. Those pleasures, enjoying something that you do is extremely important. We have a comment that I wanted to bring to the screen, but because I'm on a different device, I don't really know how to do it. Dave asks, Ryan, do you ever have droughts of creativity, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, all the time. I can go for weeks on end and not write anything, and then all of a sudden a switch will go and everything comes out. Um, for me personally, there's not really anything that I do specifically to try and invoke that creativity, because I feel like if I'm forcing it, it's not genuine. And going back to what I was saying earlier about when I write, it is exactly what it says it is. I don't want to write something that isn't a genuine thing, because then it's giving off a message that I don't want to actually put out there, or it's not it's not me. So for me, it's just a case of, if I'm going through a patch where I sit down with my notebook or I sit down at my laptop and nothing's coming out, just walk away, do something else. And then when a thought comes, act on that. I will always take my phone into the bathroom with me. So if I'm in the shower and something pops into my head, I can just quickly hit voice record. I can say what I need to say, and then I can come back to it then when I'm ready to actually sit down. I can listen back to what I've said and use that as the launch pad to start writing again. Likewise, if I'm at work and something pops into my head, I can scribble it on a scrap of paper or type it into my phone. But it's just knowing that if you're not able to create something, or you're not able to write something, there's no pressure, because if you're putting yourself under pressure to create something, you're not doing it for the right reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is about being true to yourself, isn't it? And yeah, you can't really force creativity. I find it that, it is in you, and you then act on it, or if it's not, you can't really force it. So yeah, very, very interesting. That makes so much sense, Dave says. Thank you so much. So another aspect of of creativity, I think that we said about it being contagious. So, for example, if I lack any kind of inspiration, I will engage in some activity that may put me under a spell, I would say. So yeah, I will search for beauty around me. I will talk to other creatives. Even a conversation can spark the activity of creative outcome, even if not in that moment. It may stay with you for a while, then it comes. I find it particular evidence in journaling. Like you, I do write, and I do paint or draw or whatever, doodle, and I keep an art journal. I don't even do it on daily basis, because not always it's possible, but I keep them and add to them. And you know what I find? That I had a thought which I captured in my art journal weeks before I created the artwork that really links with it. So the thought may be born much before the action takes place.
Yeah.
And it's like a plant from the seed growing within you, and when it's ready, it will blossom, isn't it? So engaging in activities that feed and nurture your talents, is the way forward, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just something else as well that I've just thought is, when you were saying about engaging with other creatives, is just being aware of social media, because it's very easy to go onto Instagram or Facebook or wherever and go into that to use it as a source of inspiration by looking at what other people are creating or posting. But because of the nature of the platform, straight away I tend to find then that it's, if I look at 20 to 30 different pieces of art or different poems that people have posted, because I'm looking at it for the purpose of I want to find something that hits me and says, right, this is the spark that you need to start writing again. I can quite easily then say, well, I've got to do it now because I need to post because everyone else is still posting. So although engaging with other people is a great way to find that inspiration, you also need to know when to switch off and when to put it away and go and do something that's completely different. Because of that thing of not wanting to put yourself under the pressure to try and keep up with what someone else is doing, which is where I will completely switch off from it. So a couple of months back, I put a post on saying I'm taking time off, and I didn't open Instagram to look at anything unless it was to put something on the story just to update people as to what I was doing. For that very reason, that I knew that if I started scrolling through, and it's very easy to get into a habit of just scrolling endlessly,
Yeah.
and then the next thing you know, you've lost an hour, and
Yeah.
you've not created anything new, but you put yourself under the pressure of saying, I need to do it because I've just spent an hour looking at stuff, but you're still not getting the juices flowing. It's like, oh, you just need to switch off completely, go away,
Yeah.
do something completely different, being outside, put your phone down and go outside, and something in the natural world will cause inspiration, and I can guarantee that.
Yes,
I
definitely.
can go for a walk for 20 minutes and see something that I'll go, I want to write about that, or that's reminded me of something that actually I need to get off my chest.
Yeah.
And then I can go home and write about that thing, rather than sitting there endlessly trying to engage with other people and then just thinking, oh, I feel really bad now. But just getting outside, it makes you feel better anyway, and you will see something or experience or hear something that somewhere in the back of your brain, it'll hit a switch and you'll go, that's the light bulb moment that I needed.
Yeah, it's a creativity, is a phenomenon, and how some weird situations may spark it and kindle it. There are many stories that creatives tell, but yeah, the technology that you mentioned, it can be a blessing, but also it can be a curse. So you need to be very careful how you deal and engage with it, because it's very easy to get into the rat race. Why creativity shouldn't be that. Creativity should have the meaning, the purpose, and it should come from within rather than be a competition and comparison to others that create. Looking at the time, as usual, I am losing the train of thoughts, because time is approaching that we're supposed to be, ending. And do you have access to the poem that you put on your technological platform called Instagram recently? And there is a keyhole and the eye through that keyhole. Do you know which one I mean?
Yes.
Would it be possible for you to read that poem to us?
Yeah, sure. Let me just... this is where I've said that I can find it, and now I can't find it. Yeah, that one.
You got it. Yeah, that one. Yes.
Perfect. Brilliant. Right, so I can see you peering at me in the dark of night, waiting for an opportunity, a moment when you can strike. Like a sixth sense, I've just got this feeling that always lurking is the demon, creeping in the shadows, biding its time, but never again will it find a home in my mind. I'm stronger than ever and will forever be a fighter, banishing the demon to the darkness, whilst my life keeps getting brighter.
Yeah, it's lovely, and this is the one that's hit me like a thunderstorm recently, and I created an artwork to that poem, because I do that for every guest. I create a picture with them in my mind, and I just let it happen. and it's a bit spooky, I must admit, but but also it gives me so much joy when I create them. So I create those artworks, and my guests have the right, but no obligation to purchase that artwork, original one, and then 20% of that goes to Mental Health Warriors platform, because it is run by donations. And I created the image to that particular poem. I'm not sure how well you will be able to see, and our audience to see it, because I am on my mobile today due to rebellion in my house in terms of proper equipment. But yeah, there it is. So
That is absolutely amazing.
There is the person fighting the thing lurking from the darkness.
That is absolutely stunning.
I will, of course, send you the digital version of it so you can see it properly, because I know that showing it to this little camera, it's not showing it properly. But yeah, this is the poem that really hit me recently, and when knowing you and diving into your creativity, I can see that you are a warrior, that you do fight with your words. And for that reason, I would like to encourage everyone who will watch it, our podcast, or who is watching now, to engage with your books and your poems, because they really, really are so real and so important to engage with those words. Sometimes they will give you comfort, sometimes they will strike the nerve, sometimes will let you understand that others feel exactly like you may be feeling. So the last thing before we go, if there is someone in a very dark place at the moment and struggling, what advice would you give them?
The first thing that I would say is, don't think that you're on your own. You never are. I know from experience that you can be in a room full of hundreds of people and feel like you're the only one in there, because that's just how, particularly from my experience, that's how depression can make you feel. That's how anxiety can make you feel. Is that there are so many people around me, but nobody understands me, or I'm not able to talk to anyone. That is so far from the truth. If you've got a phone in your hands, you have got access to everything that you need, to everyone that you need. Even if there's no one that you personally know, there is always someone out there. There's always a service available where you can ring someone, or you can text someone. Or message me on Instagram even if you've just got something that you think, I need to say, or I need to put into words to someone, but I don't think I can physically say to someone that I know. Just reach out to someone, because we're all people. We all have thoughts. We all have feelings. We all have moments where we doubt ourselves, or we feel like there's no point in carrying on. Somebody will understand, and they will offer you the hand that you need to pull you out of that hole. So that would be my first thing for anyone that is in a dark place, is find someone that will offer you the torch to light up the room that you're currently stuck in.
Yeah, beautifully said. Indeed, you are never alone. Even if you think and feel alone, there is someone that can help. And thank you so much, Ryan, for being with me today. I'm very sorry for the delay. Well, life happens, doesn't it? And I'm sure that we will be meeting again at some point, as if I can say, we are having a little project at the back scene that we are working on. Yeah, so we expect some fruit from both of us very soon. And thank you everyone for watching, and those who will watch the rewatch. There is one announcement from Warriors. It was somewhere there that yes, tune in at 1 p.m. UK. Adam's son Lucas will be getting very creative, as he will be blowing your mind, as he will be solving multiple Rubik cubes. Wow. So this is the announcement from Warriors TV. And thank you, everyone. I hope you have a lovely weekend. And the next Art My Medicine podcast is next week, when I'm going to host Dave Combs, and we are going to talk about all things creative. Lovely to have you all, and see you next week. And we will finish with a little video.